So as we've been discussing this week, we are now 1 year into the global coronavirus pandemic. Around this time last year, we were dealing with massive shortages of toilet paper, sanitizing products, and food, as people not only stocked up, but also hoarded these items because of the uncertainties of what to expect next. So the question is, did this past year turn the U.S. into a nation of preppers? Roman Zrazhevskiy, founder and CEO of Mira Safety, a manufacturer and distributor of survival and tactical gear, is here to discuss. Thank you so much for joining us. While we were waiting to have this conversation, Vlad and I were sort of thinking back about what it is that we hoarded or did not hoard. Vlad, I know you're in an apartment, so you probably don't have a lot of space to hoard stuff. Here where I was living, they were shutting down the liquor stores, and I thought it would be a good idea to get, some wine and maybe a little tequila just in case. And then I wished I had thought more about toilet paper when I realized that I couldn't get any. So first off, how did you get started in the survival preparedness business?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me on. So I started in this business because there were two distinct events that happened in my life. The first one was Chernobyl. So I was born in 1986, a few months before Chernobyl happened in Russia. And while Moscow, where I was born, wasn't directly affected by the disaster, it was always discussed in family circles. What could have been done to mitigate the situation, to better prepare for it, to save more people, because quite a few people died. And the other situation, the other ordeal that I experienced was 9/11. My high school is right across the water from the Twin Towers. And, a lot of my friends and family, everybody had somebody that lost somebody. And, unfortunately, I came to the realization that if on that day, the first responders and the victims had something so simple as an N95 respirator or even a more advanced respirator, we wouldn't have seen so many cases of mesothelioma and 9/11 syndrome, as they call it, with so many people suffering from debilitating diseases.
So it's interesting, Anne-Marie. I did have a pretty good stock of Clorox wipes, and yeah, I did, yeah, because I'm not a survivalist, but many years ago I started just preparing for certain situations, and it always struck me. I think it started. Many years ago, but there was a story a couple of years ago of a guy who actually was a tech writer who died of hypothermia in trying to find some help when he and his family, along with his wife and newborn baby, got stuck in a snowstorm in the Pacific Northwest. And he had nothing in his car that could have prepared him to last a couple of nights, even though they knew they were driving through sort of this treacherous weather. And it just got me thinking about the times that we think to ourselves, well, I'm just going for a hike. I'm just going for a walk, in the mountains or in the woods, and I don't need to carry water or as much water, or I don't need to carry any medicine. And so I just started to think about those things when we often think to ourselves, we're not going to need anything to get us through a situation, and I started preparing. So the question becomes, of course, what has business been like since the pandemic began? Because a lot of people weren't prepared. A lot of people are now understanding of what a pandemic means. I've noticed that there are Clorox wipes now available in grocery stores and pharmacies. So what has your business been like?
Well, 2020 has been an insane year for my business and others in the industry. Most people, unfortunately, prepare last minute, and they don't think about these things. They don't think about what they need. But then when the realization comes that there may be shortages of equipment, that's when everybody comes out in droves and starts buying up all the toilet paper, all the Clorox wipes, all the bottled water and everything else. So it's been quite a wild ride. Everything from agency sales. Agencies are also preparing, police, medical units. But regular people as well. It's not the preppers who are preparing. The preppers have been well stocked long before this pandemic started. It's really just Main Street America, regular people who are concerned about what's going on, who want to make sure that they have the peace of mind and the equipment to take care of their families.
I think this is really interesting because we're not just talking about, having some cans of soup and enough toilet paper to last you a week. Your stuff is about survivalist stuff. This is sort of the next level. And I'm curious, are you seeing different types of people now tapping into what you have to offer? Are we talking about, regular PTA soccer mom types, grandparents? Who's buying?
Well, I always like to take the approach of practical preparedness. That's what's important for me, and I think that's what's important for the majority of people. The main thing to do is have a plan, because all the gear in the world isn't going to save you if you don't have a plan. You should build an evacuation kit in case you have to evacuate, and then also to prepare your home in case you have to hunker down for an extended period of time. So who's buying? Once again, it's Main Street America. It's not the preppers. It's not the hardcore, people living in the boondocks. It's really just Main Street America, young urban professionals, soccer moms, pretty much everybody in between. They came to the realization that, things may not come back to normal for some time, and we may have shortages. And preparedness is all about having what you need for your family and just to get by. So really, it's everybody. Everybody's preparing at this point.
Yeah, and Roman, we're showing some
images. What's your most popular item?
So gas masks have been very popular, for a number of reasons. Mostly because, we started off really taking the approach of, wildfire preparedness, and we had a lot of business drumming up because there's been a lot of, civil unrest. And it's really those people who are concerned about, who live in the big cities, who are concerned about tear gas even making its way through their air ducts, or turning down the wrong street and being caught unprepared, where there's some kind of protest going on or some kind of riot. So gas masks have been quite popular. Mira Safety, my company, does specialize in full face respirators. So that's one of our more popular products.
But here's the thing, Roman. So for all those, the things that we saw runs on, toilet paper, hand wipes, hand sanitizer, but there wasn't, people went hungry because they lost their jobs and they didn't have, and the economy suffered because of the pandemic. But the grocery store shelves were always stocked. We didn't see, some of the images that we showed there are, I've seen people dressed like that. I saw them at the Capitol during the insurrection. In other words, I guess I'm wondering about the kinds of things that people are buying in prepping for what seems more apocalyptic than what we've just gone through, which is probably one of the worst things that we've ever collectively gone through as a nation, going back to the early part of the century during the influenza crisis. Sorry, Emery.
That's why I asked Roman about what his most popular item was, because, it occurred to me that we started this segment by sort of marking 1 year into this pandemic. But throughout this period of time, we have faced a number of crises, right? And there's been a sort of reckoning on race, on the intensity of our political conversations. And what Roman is describing is not people who are afraid they're going to run out of toilet paper. They're buying gas masks. Right. And I think that really sort of speaks to how, what our fears are about the state of this country in a way. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, Roman. I don't know. What do you get from the popularity of some of the items? What's your takeaway about where we are as a nation and how we feel about this country and our safety?
Sure. Well, if you're going to get a respirator, you might as well get a gas mask, because that's the type of product that would help you through many different types of situations. Face masks are great just for preventing projectile saliva and mucus. But if you really want full protection, a gas mask is really the way to go. And the good thing about a gas mask is, it doesn't have to be just for pandemics. It could be for doing certain stuff around your house, drywall, construction. It has many, many uses. So some of the more apocalyptic things, I would say, people kind of spend a lot of money on their evacuation kits, also called bug out bags. And they really kind of, go deep with it. They're getting advanced water filtration systems. They're getting communication systems for if, comms go down, ham radio systems. And all this stuff also requires quite a bit of training. So, once again, I want to emphasize that equipment is important. It's great to have. The philosophy I have is better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. But at the same time, training and preparation and having a plan, knowing how to use all this equipment is way more important in my view.
Yeah, I mean, bug out bag. I have a bug out bag, but it doesn't have a gas mask. It doesn't have anything that I would need to prepare myself to actually, fight people or to fight my way out of a situation. What it has are things that I would need, like you said, water filtration or medical equipment, splints, reflecting mirror. If I ever find it's things like that sort of mean that you yourself are at personal risk, and not that the risk is coming from other human beings around you. So that's sort of, why we were asking Roman about like the things that you found to be most popular. For example, are people buying MREs, meals ready to eat?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the emergency food manufacturers are back ordered many months even now.
Wow.
Wow.
Fascinating.
That is also fascinating to me. And I wonder just how much of a role we play as, part of the media, because it's, we kind of go from, one protest to a natural disaster. And, even I have said to myself, I really should have, some way to keep the lights on here or keep the heat going, especially after seeing what happened in Texas. It's a really fascinating area. And clearly you're in a growth industry, Roman.
Yeah, it's a compounding effect. It's not just coronavirus. It's, 2020 has been a wild ride. It went from coronavirus to killer hornets to protests to, the plethora of other nasty things going on. So that's what really has an effect on people. It's not one event. It's just seeing the general trend with many events, all compounded within a short period of time. That's what's really making people take action.
Hey, Roman, really quickly, one last question. You said something that makes me wonder, given that you were born in Moscow, right at the end of the collapse of the Soviet Union, basically. Do you see the same level of interest in this type of stuff in Russia, where there are, forces at work that subjugate people, or in other former Soviet countries, where the balance between democracy and authoritarianism is not as perhaps strong as it is here in the U.S.?
Well, I haven't been to Russia in a long time. I left there when I was 6 years old. But I do see, just based on what the media is showing, that there is some civil unrest going on there as well. And this is a global phenomenon. This isn't just in the U.S.
That's my question, basically. Is it just
really
Americans?
Going on all over the world.
Yeah, that was my question. Is it just Americans that are really into, buying this gear? We tend to be a gear, tech-loving society where we want like cool new things. We cosplay a lot in this country.
We like stuff.
And I wondered if in parts of for example, I lived in Africa, where things are always a little dicey. You don't see a lot of people with this stuff, and it's not a big. It's just not as common to see people interested in gearing up like this the way it is here.
Yeah, a lot of that equipment isn't available in some countries, and it's also very expensive, and people in other countries just simply can't afford it. But I would say, based on our sales figures, America, U.S. is over 90% of our sales, but we also do have quite a big contingent in Europe. Especially in the UK, and especially right around the time as Brexit's going on. People are concerned. They don't know what's going to happen. They feel that there could be some kind of monetary collapse because of the uncertainty of what's going to happen with the pound versus the euro. And then we also see a lot of interest in places like Hong Kong, where there was a lot of civil unrest, and you couldn't get a respirator. And actually, for some time, they actually banned respirators and didn't allow them into the country because the protesters were using it to, protect themselves and get out on the streets and make their voices heard.
Fascinating.
That's interesting.
Yeah, very interesting indeed. Roman Zrazhevskiy, thank you very, very much for sharing your insights. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. Take care, guys.
Take care.